Okay, so now that we're finally up and shooting and on the range, I don't want to just go through and shoot and show, just in the interest of breaking this up, and also because I've started another completely new project. This is going to be something that I'm going to chronicle, in which we're trying to resurrect a gun that I had built in 1993, I think, or 1995. This was my first Benchrest gun. This is back, I didn't graduate, they kicked my sorry ass out of gunsmithing school in 82 or so. I did a little for a while, worked in a couple of stores, but I ended up getting myself into a position by the late 80s, early 90s that I started putting together guns. And I believe I had this built. I lived on a property, had a range, and I was shooting accurized Remingtons. I bought out an estate sale which happened to have 3 PPC USAs in it. One of them being a Socko A1, I believe it was called. 6 PPC USA Socko that shot unbelievable. It completely reset my clock from all my accurized varmint this and varmint that and doing this and doing that on all the groups I'd ever shot. I got this Socko in my hands, and all of a sudden, wow. Well, I still was reaching a point where I was getting unexplained flyers. I was getting air in my groups, and I knew there were guys out there that were shooting little bitty groups, and they were doing it on call. You know, I was always the kind of guy that I like to have something that's repeatable. You know, every redneck loves to be able to say, hey, hold my beer and watch this. Now, I don't drink, so I can't really use the hold my beer thing, but I get it. It makes the point. I had never had a truly repeatable gun. I would carry a group around in my wallet, and maybe 2 or 3. I kept stacks and stacks of paper, and I shot this. But this I ordered. This is a Time Precision, early 90s, solid bottom gun. And a guy named Art Kachia put this together. I was, for the first time, going to spend really serious money on a gun, like $3,000 plus. And I said, okay, I called people and I bugged people, and I generally made a pest of myself. And this guy, Art Kachia, took me up. I told him I want a setup. I want a gun built that will compete anywhere in the United States and that I can still hunt with. He said, well, what do you mean by competing? I said, I want to shoot short-range BR. I want to shoot whatever kind of score disciplines are out there. I had been reading and I subscribed to Benchrest magazines and various shooting magazines and varmint hunter magazines, and I was getting an idea, and I was seeing accuracy, and I said, can you do this? Long story short, he took me up on it, and he put me together this package with 7 barrels, an enormous big square. So basically I still have it here. I have a gun case that when it's loaded up, it weighs 140 pounds. It has 2 scopes, stock, a whole bunch of barrels. It goes on and on. Well, long story short, he built something that can and would compete all over the place. But of course it's limited for certain disciplines. It was a solid bottom single shot, right, and this is the scope that was on it. This was my first, this is a 36, a classic 36 loophole from back in the day. I believe this one's called a D, I don't remember. Doesn't matter. Adjustable front objective, big old target knobs. This has all the stuff. This was the dude. This is what I set the gun up for. Now, barrel-wise, if there's any old Benchrest guys watching this, they're going to start giggling and chuckling and looking at the barrel runs clear out of the picture. Not only does it run clear out of the picture, but that isn't the extent of it. I just cut off this much of it. So, I mean, just like 10 minutes ago. We've been shooting, and I decided, I've been wondering what to do with this old pig for a long, long time. Now some of you are looking and saying, what is that thing sticking up? This is a gun from the mid-90s. I do have a Benchrest 6 PVC barrel for it. This was built by Art. This is his reamer, my first 6mm PPC 262 neck SLV 0689. The weird thing is it's fluted. He fluted these with a fiber saw. This makes weight. This gun with this plate on the front, this plate goes here, and a magnetic tuner inside the stock, and this barrel is a legal 6 PPC Benchrest gun. I like the looks of it so much I told him, hey, make me a varmint barrel too. Now this, I've been doing a bunch of work with this. It's now something, it's a Fireform nutted assembly. Got a big note on here, but this again was fluted, old school, by this fiber blade. This PPC is fluted so deeply that it winds up. If I put the barrel vise out here and I put the bone to her, she winds up. Now, this, right now I'm doing a lot of work with making barrels, setting barrels to a higher standard. This barrel that's on here is also my first custom cartridge. Back in those early 90s, I went and took an RCBS die, just a plain old RCBS. I bellied up to the grinder and I ground off the bottom almost 1/4 inch. And I crammed these cases in and I made something. The neck, I used to call it the Ichabod because the neck stuck all the way out to here. I mean, the neck of the case was that long because I had pushed the shoulder back a couple hundred thou. And I was researching, saying when I can shoot, I want to be able to shoot at whatever competition is available. So this thing kind of does that. This is kind of this was my attempt at trying to cover all the bases. And to a limited success, to a limited place I did. But I soon found out that the HBR that I had designed this for, I designed this for something called HBR competition. This gun was illegal for it because it was a solid bottom, and HBR has to have a magazine cut out. So when it was all said and done, I ended up with this thing with a bunch of barrels. It's a wicked varmint gun. It shoots like a dream. I got 22 BR barrels for it. I got all different stuff for it. I got 2 6 PPC barrels that could be competitive. One of them is fluted, one of them is shorter. But it's a kludge. Nothing works well on it. I also had it set up with a safety, and this is where it gets kind of weird. I wanted a locking 3-position safety. These holes in these milling cuts he made me, or I don't know, I think I paid it. Let's not get into it. There was money here and money here and money there. This has got a 3-position Winchester side swing safety, which I took off. It had a super custom bolt knob, which I started grinding on. I currently am trying out a hair trigger on it. Don't know why, it's just where it went. And now this is where I've got this gun that I've had for literally 30 years not knowing what to do with. Can't hunt, it doesn't do anything well, even though it shoots pretty good. So I decided, I got started, I got shooting, my other series is going along just great. I'm building 5, 6 platforms. I got 2 of them being bedded over there right now. Tonight I ran out of stuff. About 5 o'clock this evening, 4 o'clock this evening, I said, you know what, I'm going to go back and attack this thing. I'm in the milling mood, so I did. First thing I did is I milled a hole in the bottom, which I think is going to be legal size to make this into a legal HBR gun. I'll mill a slot here, I'll put a spring and a plunger in there. Now here's where it got really crazy. I went after this side. I started liking, I've been liking my left load stuff so much that I went, you know what? I am gonna mill this thing so that I can chuck into the left side. So I've taken this pristine, probably collectible Time Precision Action built back in the late 80s, early 90s. And I just machined a hole here. I drilled in, now it came with these holes. It came with 3 holes and solid bottom. And as I said, for a bolt-in gun, I've had trouble matching it through the years, but it's very much a picker gun. It's very slow, click, click. So it's never been much use to me. But now I decided, I just went after this tonight. I threw it on the mill, milled this slot in the side. It does work. And in the keeping with the old school thing, a number of years ago, this gun is still going to be, it's not going to be a score gun, and it's still going to be somewhat universal. I cut this barrel down, hoping I can get this to make weight. One of the things that I noticed right away, because I tighten barrels more now than I did back in the day, and this barrel's been on and off a few times. You're going to notice something here. The lettering is rolled down into the stock. There's more lettering there. This is called the 308 Matson. This is my first reamer that I ordered, and it's marked as a 331 neck. This is just what I decided back in the day. And now with because I tightened things a little tighter, all of a sudden I tightened this up to something acceptable, about 100 foot-pounds, and it rolled the lettering right down into the stock. I can only read one of the lettering things. But I have had this dilemma, and I've been thinking about this gun for literally 10 years, wondering what I was going to do, how I was going to make this into a useful platform. A number of years ago, a guy named Jackie Schmidt got into freezing scopes. So here we go. Here's my original 36. This is what the gun makes weight with. And I'm now going to end up putting it on a railgun, because a railgun doesn't really need much of a scope. And or whatever. The point is that right now it's set up to go on a Panda. But in keeping with this old school traditional thing I've got going here, this is a way back fiberglass stock, very first HBR stock. Everything here should be for HBR, should have the hole in the bottom now, so I can legally do the plungeable magazine and push a cartridge down into it. Now I can chuck into this left side, bam bam, that all should work. And this is where it gets really interesting. I mentioned Jackie. Here's a scope that is just like that other one, only the turrets, oddly enough, are missing on it. Jackie Schmidt ripped this thing open on his kitchen table and forevermore epoxied the reticle hanger assembly into the center of this scope, so it's no longer adjustable. And during that same time, a guy named Gene Bucky started making an assembly here. This is the front, this is the rear, I've got it lapped and bedded and everything works here. Let's throw this on here quick, and as this thing starts to come together and starts to take shape, you're going to start seeing where I'm going with it now. And we are going to be shooting this in this series of shooting. We're going to find out if I can get this old guy to be competitive in today's market. And the one thing different is it's going to shoot fast now. It's going to be able to shoot, not that you have to shoot fast in score, but to make matters even cooler, and in keeping with the spirit of this gun, which was originally built to work all over the place. I could hunt it in North Dakota and keep driving and take in a shoot in Wisconsin and keep driving and take in a 1,000-yard shoot somewhere else and keep driving and go shoot a deer and keep driving. And oh man, you know how it is with a kid at his first really cool, not really cool gun, man. I've had so many really cool guns. My first single shot 22 was a really cool gun, and then my dad got me a 20 gauge with a 22 over the top. I mean, there was nothing cooler than that. An old Savage 24, 20 gauge over 22 over 20 gauge. I mean, so let's not say this is a cool, but this is the first gun I paid big money for, and this is the gun that taught me to see the wind. This is the gun that opened my eyes. This is the platform that I first saw the wind on. Everything prior to that, this is the gun that showed me that I was fooling myself. I got a taste of it with that Sako A1. That was an accurate factory gun. Still is. I still know where it is and who has it. But this was a whole different. My range at the time was one set yardage, 186 yards, that's all I had. And the first time I started shooting this on a flat evening when the wishes were hanging in the air, and well, drifting across at about 2 miles an hour, and it started dropping 22 BRs into the same hole at 186 yards, I thought I died and gone to heaven. I really had. I mean, it was the coolest. I was blown away, amazed. Wait a minute. And then through the next 3, 4, 5 years, as I powered my way through these barrels, I found out I could see the wind. I found out what all the fuss was about. I found out what people were talking about. It was like reaching out with a big old magic marker, and when the wind was blowing on your arm, you'd hit a little bit to the left. You could watch the wind. You could watch the trees, and the bullet would print over it. Amazing! The gun is amazingly accurate and tractable. 2 of the 5 or 6 barrels were spectacular. But now that I've converted it, this actually started about a year ago. A guy on Benchrest Central named Al Nyhus lined me up with something else that I needed. This is a 6-power HBR scope. The classic one, the cool one, the best one, the Model 8 6x42 with a big front end. This will go into this same base. Well, let me check, let me measure again before I put my tools away here. If I can get this in here. Okay, I broke this out just because I found it in the drawer when I was getting some of these old parts out. This is from the early 40s. It's actually a machinist rule from my father-in-law. I thought it was funny. It's ivory. It's an ivory measure with a... Some old guy somewhere is going to look at that and go, wow, that brings it back. Anyway, I wasn't measuring anything. So, now I've converted, I think I'm going to have something I'm going to be able to take out and actually use. This is a 6-power scope. True HBR. This is a true HBR cartridge. So this with this, and this Bucky's mount, this mount that you've been looking at as I'm mounting it up, is an externally adjustable mount. This is really a cool thing. This is infinitely adjustable. There's no clicks in this. It's a spring-loaded, tensioned up. And what I'm going to do for starters, in the interest of the series in which I'm starting with things raggedy, for lack of a better term, and tightening up to make true accuracy, I absolutely believe that this barrel has been proven both on this platform, and now we're talking about when it was long. Thing was hugely long at the time, but this barrel will shoot into one hole. I remember so clearly, I ordered this an 18 twist barrel. Art Kachia is working on this thing back in the day, and he's keeping me updated, and I talked to him about an HBR. I made my HBR. It took him a year to build this, so during that time I ground off my die, I ordered a reamer, and the next thing you know, I sent this a Krieger barrel, built in, I don't know, mid-90s, 18 twist as I recall. It showed up on Art Kachia's doorstep, and he just about sent it back. He didn't know, I had told him I was sending out a barrel, but 18 twist, he had never heard of it. So I called him up and said, hey, did my barrel get there? And he goes, I said, I ordered an 18 twist. Oh, 18 twist? He about freaked out. What in the world are you doing with that? And I explained to him. 30 HBR, and also this was prior to the 30 BR. This is prior to a lot of things. This case, it's really fantastic because I hit this case so on the nut that I can take this chamber and I can either build cases now out of 308 Palma, trim them back and make them, or even cooler than that, I can take 6x47 Lapua brass, which is what this is. This is actually 6x47 Lapua brass blown up, and it hits the length and it fits and it head spaces. It's a beautiful thing. So this thing's been niggling at the back of my mind for all this time, and I think I finally got something to make it useful. It's going to be a left load, right eject, HBR, and it's a score gun. This is going to be my score gun with an infinitely adjustable old school Buckies. I'm going to do 1-inch tubes. We're going to put this together. We're going to see if we can make weight. We're going to take it out and throw it into the mix. So that's going to be a 6th or 7th gun thrown in to make little bug holes. We're going to make this guy make bug holes in 22, 6mm, and in 30. Even though it's a 35-year-old gun, 25-year-old gun, and I just milled the snot out of it. We're going to play with the number of screw holes underneath. We're going to do cool stuff with this if you want to watch. And even if you don't want to watch, I don't really care. Maybe my kids will watch it after I'm dead. I'm just going to play with this and document it for myself, if nothing else. So this is going to get mixed in along with the other projects I've got. This is an introduction to a completely different score gun project. See if we can make it shoot. Thanks for listening, guys.